Without the Holocaust, what would the world be?
We would have white people still. All of the niggers would not be here.
Jews would run the world without the Holocaust. Fuck niggers, fuck Jews.
Jews are fine
if the
because they're
Holocaust
white.
never happened, Jews would be running the world right now.
It's fine. We just need niggers gone. So half
Think about
mix
that.
Oreos.
Think about that.
What are you gonna do with them?
Awesome.
You stick them in concentration
No,
camps
you
and
have
fucking
to. No, you have to
barb
wait till they die off.
We kind of run.
It's charging.
No, we run niggers because they do football for us and rap music, and we pay them for that.
No, they do nothing. Do you want to know what the fucking Democrat and like whole Republican?
How about we just kick out all the
Republicans
Democrats
are
and we go on
niggers
strike?
that want to
still
take white
videoing it?
people's money who don't. Get up, man. Get on that belly. Get up, boy. Get up, boy. Get up. Stand up. Keep going. Oh, get it, boy. Get up, man. You got it. Push, baby. Push. Push, baby. Push, baby. Get on that belly. Get on that belly. There you go. Come on, Kay. Get up on your feet. Come on, baby. Oh, look at you go. Look at you go. You can do it. You can do it. You got it. Push, baby. Push, baby. Get it.
There you go. There you go. Oh, hell, you done hurt him, Kay. Damn. You done went flipped him too hard.
Umbrella. She's up. Whole nother level of shit you can't even understand.
What is good, my people? We are live back again with another episode of The Forecast. Now, the dominant society goes out of their way to instill fear into our communities. They go out of the way to send us messages. And they have to. That's the only way they can maintain their dominance. Psychological warfare is one of the most important parts of white supremacy. They will do everything in their power to stop black unity. Because us being in power seems to take away everybody else's power. So they have to force into your mind that if you even think about it, there will be consequences. And it doesn't matter if you're old, if you're young, rich or poor, man or a woman. It doesn't matter who you are or what you've accomplished. Even though they say we are treasonous if we don't honor a racist song that talked about killing our ancestors. Meanwhile, black veterans have been terrorized from the first war to the last one. And it doesn't matter if they fought for this country, they still deal with the same racism. In everybody's time of need, we are the ones they come to fight for them. And time again, we think if we prove ourselves that things will change. But that's never been the case. In the War of 1812, America's second independence war, we already know how Francis Scott Key and many Americans felt about black people who fought with the British. How dare those slaves not want to be owned by us? And they're treasonous for even trying to get freedom. But the black veterans fighting on the American side didn't change their mind about racism and white supremacy either. Fighting with them didn't give them freedom. In fact, the black unity created more fear in the white communities, even though they were fighting in their best interests. America and everybody else has always offered black people the illusion of freedom whenever they need us to fight for them. But after the war was over, they got right back on code. They not only decided to destroy the free black communities that was established in Spanish Florida because they saw them as a threat. Andrew Jackson, before he became the president, led an army to burn their communities down and to re-enslave as many people or kill as many people as possible. America also attacked and destroyed free mulatto communities because they saw them as a threat that would eventually challenge the white status quo. It didn't matter how many black people helped fight for their freedom. When it was over, you went right back to being a nigga and was expected to happily go back to being a slave. And we fought in every single war from the first to the last, and they still treat black veterans the same way. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, Elliott Williams, who was a veteran that had dealt with mental illness in the past, died after he was paralyzed with a broken neck, laying in the jail cell for 51 hours with no food, water, or medical attention.
Elliot, lay down on the floor. Stay laid down. Do you understand me?
former chief deputy at the Tulsa County Jail describes the treatment of an inmate who died there as inhumane. It's the latest development in the federal civil rights trial of 47-year-old Elliot Williams, who died in the jail back in 2011. Fox 23's Ashley Lincoln is live with why former Chief Deputy Michelle Robinette is now changing her story.
Yeah, Michelle Robinette is now over the jail's mental health unit. She was over the detention officers at the time of Elliot Williams' death. Now, she stated in a 2013 deposition, Robinette says that staff did not break policy, but now she's changing her tune. 4 years ago, former Chief Deputy Michelle Robinette told attorneys her detention officers made several errors in the handling of Elliot Williams. But on the stand Monday, she told jurors a different story. She told Daniel Smolin, attorney for Williams' family, that during a 2013 deposition, she believed her detention officers failed to provide adequate care, did not follow policies, and treated Williams inhumanely. As we've reported, Williams was found dead in a jail cell in 2011 after suffering from a broken neck for days. However, Monday, Robinette told jurors after reviewing all of the files in this case, she believes the fault wasn't on her detention staff, but rather the medical provider. Attorneys for the sheriff's office have stated since day one of this trial, none of their detention officers did anything wrong, and it was up to the medical provider to do their job. Robinette told the court she'd only received a verbal reprimand from the sheriff's office at the time of Williams' death. She says she was told her actions were a lack of control over her unit and she dropped the ball. And Tulsa County Commissioner Karen Keefe took the stand earlier today on Fox 23 News at 6. I'll have why she says the county continue renewing the jail's medical provider's contract despite all of the issues that came up within those audit reports. Reporting live from downtown, covering news that matters, I'm Ashley Lincoln, Fox 23 News.
And we have more details tonight. Tulsa County Sheriff Vic Regalado took the stand today. He testified that his office is in the process of changing policies relating to inmate health care. Regalado has been in the courtroom for several days of the trial. When asked if he thought Williams received adequate care, he told the court he couldn't answer that question because he hasn't heard all of the testimony.
Now, this brother Elliot Williams, who was experiencing a mental breakdown after he was dealing with a divorce and his mom was sick, so a hotel employee called the police. When they got there, they said this brother wasn't compliant, so they pepper sprayed him because he wouldn't sit down when they told him to. Then they ended up arresting his brother on a misdemeanor obstruction because they said he was interfering with the cop's job. One cop, Benjamin Woolery, said the brother took a threatening step at the cops, so his partner, Officer Jack Wells, knocked him to the ground and then put a knee in his back like they usually do. Now, nobody seems to know how his neck got broken, but a cop said that one inmate said they saw this brother Elliot Williams banging his head against the wall, but it just so happened to be in a place where there wasn't any cameras. But in the report, when Elliot Williams got the booking, the cop Jack Wells slammed him again, trying to put him in handcuffs. The cops tried to say he was still fine at that point, he wasn't hurt, but the sheriff's office said in the video he did look hurt and that he was having trouble standing. This brother never even finished the booking process. He told the nurse that he couldn't walk and he thought his neck was broken. Then the nurse rubbed it for a few seconds and said he was fine, and she claimed he was faking it. Then after coming back a few hours later to check on him, this brother, who still haven't moved at all, ended up using the bathroom on himself. The jail captain, Michelle Robinette, said he may have a mental illness, but he's faking the injury. So then they took him to the shower, stripped his clothes off, and then literally dumped him off the gurney into the shower. One nurse said, "You should be ashamed of yourself. Quit faking and get your nasty ass in the shower." They left this brother in the shower for over an hour, close to 90 minutes. One guard said he saw him laying face down, screaming for help, but nobody did. They just left him. Then after they finally got him out the shower, they dragged him back to his cell completely naked, and he still couldn't move. He couldn't even get a drink of water, but everybody still said he was faking it. Then the next day, they dragged him into another cell with a camera just to see if he would move. And then they would throw his food into him. They would put water by his feet, but nobody ever actually helped him eat or drink anything. One nurse said she saw the condition he was in and tried to help, but they wouldn't even let her in the cell. Both the medical staff and the jail staff would literally go in there and taunt him as he laid there. They would say stuff like, you know, when you leave, you're going to have to walk to the car, so you might as well stop faking it. They ended up leaving him in there for 51 hours until he eventually died. And then the medical director said sometimes people just die trying to justify it.
We're hearing from the brother of a Tulsa County jail inmate who died in 2011 after family members say he didn't receive proper medical attention behind bars. Family members describe 47-year-old Elliot Williams as blessed, loved, and a man of dignity. Fox 23's Ashley Lincoln is live with what else Williams' brother wants jurors to know. Ashley.
Yeah, Shay, family members I spoke with tell me they have a lot of emotion towards their brother. Now, they just want people to know about the good man that he was. And his brother tells me of the 50-plus jail members that came into contact with Elliot Williams, not one was a good Samaritan by not offering him with any help.
Well, I can still see my mother's face as me and my brothers carried his casket to that grave. I can still see her face to this day.
Kevin Williams says life hasn't been the same since his brother, Elliot Williams, died at the Tulsa County Jail. How has this impacted your family?
It's very devastating. I'm still emotional, as you can see. I'm still emotional about it today.
Williams held back tears as he told jurors about the man he says his brother was.
He was a pillar in our family.
Williams says the Navy veteran had plans of taking over his parents' church once he retired, but that dream never came to fruition. As Fox 23 has reported, in 2011, jail staffers are accused of ignoring Williams' cries for help as he laid in a cell for days with a broken neck.
They should have called 911. Elliot would still be alive today if somebody had did something.
For the 51 hours Williams laid in this cell, his family's attorneys are seeking $51 million in this civil case. But his brother says no amount of money can fix their pain.
It ain't about money. To me, it's blood money. Seriously, it's blood money.
Defense attorneys for the Tulsa County Sheriff's Office say the fault wasn't on them, but on the jail's medical provider.
To tell you the honest God truth, the way that they're acting today, and what I see that this defense is doing, I don't think there's no change, because they can't see themselves. I don't think there's no change. There has to be, something has to be shaken up in them, mentally and morally, for them to change.
And the defense has stated in this case that Williams suffered from bipolar disorder and was suicidal. Well, Williams' brother told me that was not true, that his brother, in fact, was actually having a nervous breakdown from dealing with a mother who was battling stage 4 cancer and a troubled marriage.
The medical examiner ended up ruling his death was caused by spinal injury from blunt force trauma and dehydration. He tried to reach for the water one time and couldn't and ended up knocking it over. And both the medical staff and the jail staff heard him begging for help. And the whole time they kept saying he was faking it until he died. Then on top of that, 2 hours after his death, prosecutors officially charged him with obstruction. They charged him with a misdemeanor that's not even worth jail time. And all of this happened all because his brother refused to sit down when the cop told him to. The jail staff tried to blame the medical staff for what happened, while the medical staff said it was the jail staff's fault. But at the end of the day, nobody was charged or punished at all. And they didn't even make any changes.
The former Tulsa County Sheriff told the court his staff did the best they could do in the civil rights case involving the death of an inmate at the Tulsa County Jail. 47-year-old Elliot Williams died in 2011. His family filed a lawsuit against Tulsa County and the health care provider for the jail at the time, saying he did not receive adequate care. Fox 23's Ashley Lincoln is live with why former Sheriff Stanley Glanz took the stand for a second time. Ashley.
Well, Shay, today attorneys for Elliot Williams' family walked the jury through audit reports that revealed a number of inmate deaths could have been prevented had medical treatment been given earlier. Attorneys for Elliot Williams' family says it was a decade of deteriorating decline in medical service at the Tulsa County Jail. Attorney Daniel Smolin put former Tulsa County Sheriff Stanley Glanz back on the stand for a second time Monday morning. He told Glanz had he made necessary corrections to the jail's medical unit, a number of inmate deaths could have been prevented, including Elliot Williams's. Glanz has stated from the start of this trial, none of his staffers did anything wrong. However, Smolin showed showed the court an excerpt from an audit report that says because of the lack of oversight and following a policy, if things didn't change, more inmates would die. I got my hands on the number of inmate deaths since Williams died and found since 2011, 20 inmates have died while in custody. In the last 10 years, Smolin says 10 people have died who could still be alive today had the jail followed regulated standards. Williams' sister has been present every day during this trial. Now, she told me at times it's been difficult to have to sit there and listen to the testimony, but she said she's staying because she wants to see justice done for her brother. Kim Hamilton wipes away tears as she thinks about the good times she had with her brother.
He was the type that got up in church and offered $1,000 to any child that made all A's on their report card. So this is my brother, and this is who I miss.
Hamilton tells me it's been painful listening to testimony.
What's mind-boggling to me is these same people, these same nurses, the same jail staff are still working, still at Tulsa jail, still walking around with no conscience.
She says her life was changed the day her brother died in 2011. We've told you Elliot Williams was found dead in a jail cell after suffering from a broken neck for 5 days.
I'm glad we're finally here trying to get justice for Elliot.
Hamilton says her brother was compassionate and feels jail staffers didn't return that compassion by not giving him any medical attention.
It's clear that they deliberately left him on the floor and they deliberately did not help him in any way whatsoever.
Attorneys for the Tulsa County Sheriff's Office say Williams' death wasn't their fault. They're placing the blame on the jail's medical provider at the time, saying they were the ones responsible for inmates' medical needs.
And his death will not be in vain.
Former Sheriff Stanley Glantz has also testified in this case that he believes police should have actually taken Williams to a mental facility instead of his jail. Now, coming up on Fox 23 News at 6, I'll have what was revealed in court this afternoon on how a former doctor at the jail treated inmates to see if they were faking their illness.
Now, since his brother Elliot Williams' death, 20 other people have died. And there were at least 10 preventable deaths if they had just done their job. The medical staff and the jail staff both falsified records. The jail supervisor, Michelle Robinette, changed her story, but nobody lost their jobs or were disciplined at all. Elliot Williams' family ended up suing for $51 million for every hour he was laying on the floor, and they ended up getting around $10 million in civil court. In the civil trial, a jury admitted it was wrong, admitted somebody was liable, and this brother needed justice. But even though this brother was a preacher's son, who was a veteran, who didn't have a record, and he was tortured, laying on the ground paralyzed with a broken neck for days, and nobody is punished. They go out of the way to send a message, and they stay on code. Like with Betty Shelby. They've already cleared her 3 times for killing Terrence Crutcher. This time is no civil rights charges against her. We already know she's cleared, but they keep bringing it up to send a message. But until we put aside our tribalism and get on code and do what we got to do and start sending messages of our own, then the same thing is going to keep happening.
Betty Shelby did not want to speak on camera about today's developments, but her attorney did.
News on 6's Amy Kaufman continues our live team coverage. Amy?
Well, Terry and Craig, Betty Shelby's attorney, Scott Wood, says they didn't even know this investigation was happening, but he says they're relieved to hear about this outcome.
This guy's still walking.
It's been 2.5 years since Tulsa police officer Betty Shelby shot and killed Terrence Crutcher outside his SUV. Now the Department of Justice says there's not enough evidence to charge Shelby with a federal criminal civil rights violation.
But it is good for reconfirmation of what we've said all along.
Tulsa County prosecutors charged Shelby with first-degree manslaughter, and a jury acquitted her in May of 2017. The Department of Justice says they looked at all the evidence from the state's case and also worked to enhance video of the incident.
Would have had access to all the videos and so forth, and I understand they did have a copy of the jury trial transcript. So I'm certain it was a very, very thorough investigation.
Federal investigators ultimately determined that the evidence was not enough to establish that Officer Shelby's use of force was objectively unreasonable under the Supreme Court's definition.
She acted reasonably, and she acted just how she was trained to react in a situation like this.
Wood says Shelby is moving forward with her life, working as a deputy with the Rogers County Sheriff's Office, but says some days are harder than others.
It's always difficult when you have a lawsuit that's still pending and can be pending for several years to kind of put anything behind you. So, you know, it's an ongoing process for her.
Former Tulsa police officer Betty Shelby will not speak at a law enforcement conference in Baton Rouge this week. Shelby was set to talk to the conference about what officers might face in the aftermath of a controversial incident. Organizers uninvited her after backlash from civil rights leaders. Shelby's attorney tells News on 6 Baton Rouge police told him they could not guarantee her safety. Shelby was acquitted in the 2016 shooting death of Terrence Crutcher, an unarmed black man.
You're on my property with a gun in your hand, threatening to shoot me because I'm picking up trash. I hope that never comes. Shoot me? I don't have a weapon. This is a bucket. This is I'm not sitting down. You can't make me.
He's picking up trash.
He's got a gun. 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 Just relax. What do you mean? This is my property. This is my house. I live here. Down and drop it. I'm on duty doing my work and my job. When this officer comes over here, I give him my stuff. Your hand. That's not you because you're not listening. You have a gun in your hand. I don't have a weapon. Drop it. Focus on me. Just focus on me. Focus on me. What do you mean? Focus on you. There's just relax. Put that object down. This is my property. We just want to talk.
Dude, there's 6 cops. Zayd has a clamp in his hand thinking
This is my boy Zinio right here.
He lives here.
I live here. I'm a resident of this property. I'm picking up garbage from my door. I go to school here. I go to school here. I will not sit down. I refuse to sit down until you guys put your weapons away.
Boulder police are conducting an internal investigation after officers confronted a black man who was picking up trash. Citing a press release from the department, the Daily Camera reports an officer saw the man sitting behind a private property sign. The officer asked the man if he was allowed to be there. Authorities say the man told the officers he lived as well as worked in the building and showed ID. The officer then reportedly made a request for backup, saying the man was uncooperative and unwilling to put down a blunt object. Police found the object was a device used to pick up trash. The incident was captured on Facebook. The man says he's not sitting down and police can't make him in the video. He counts out 8 police officers. Again, police say they are conducting an internal investigation.
Now there's growing fallout from a new indictment in the gun trace task force scandal. Federal prosecutors accuse a sergeant, who is now retired, of planting a gun and ordering a witness to lie. WJZ investigator Mike Halgren is live at City Police headquarters with details on the case. Mike.
Lynn, the GTTF scandal is not yet over. 4 officers have been suspended. Sergeant Keith Gladstone is the subject of that new indictment. He's a retired sergeant, as you said, and he right now has pleaded not guilty. He's been released on his own recognizance. Retired Baltimore Police Sergeant Keith Gladstone has been indicted and faces federal charges. He planted a BB gun on a man and asked witnesses to lie.
You have a gun and cocaine?
Federal prosecutors cite his ties to WJ, believed to be Sergeant Wayne Jenkins, the disgraced head of the gun trace task force, and say Jenkins called him in a panic after deliberately running over a man in northeast Baltimore in 2014. The feds say Gladstone planted the gun on the man and instructed a fellow officer to lie if authorities ever questioned him and claimed they were there for scene security. It's not the only controversy the retired sergeant has faced.
Was much more needed to be done.
He's being sued in connection to an incident in 2010 where drugs were planted on 2 men. They were wrongly sent to prison. Among the others listed in that lawsuit, Jenkins and the late Detective Sean Suter, who died the day before testifying in front of a grand jury in the case. Suter's family has denied he committed any wrongdoing.
And the persons that did this are the people who were opposed to protect and serve.
And in the unrest that followed the death of Freddie Gray in 2015, Gladstone was one of the officers involved in this incident where Larry Lomax was pepper sprayed and then pulled down and arrested. A jury awarded Lomax $75,000 in a civil suit.
We have many, many more of these cases. This is by no means the exception to the rule.
Ivan Bates has represented several citizens who claimed wrongdoing by Gladstone.
When we realized and we compared notes about what was happening in the city, then we realized that we had to do something to try to make sure these officers were not going to be successful.
Sgt Gladstone's attorney says he has no comment because he's still reviewing the allegations, and sentencing that was set for another disgraced member of the GTTF, Detective Jamel Rayam, was supposed to happen this week. It has now been postponed.
Black History Month, so thank you all for participating in this. I'm going to go ahead and remove it.
A Black History Month poster is stirring up controversy at Port Charlotte High School. You see it there. The school district forced a teacher to take down a door decoration showing NFL player Colin Kaepernick kneeling during the pledge. NBC2's Claire Lavazorio talked to district officials to find out why.
A teacher nearly brought to tears
participating in this
after the Charlotte County School District asked her to take down this poster put up as a celebration of Black History Month.
We were in a lose-lose situation. It really did not matter what we did at that time.
I just want to know why. It doesn't make any sense.
Mike Riley with the Charlotte County School District says once parents got news of the poster being displayed, the school's phones started ringing off the hook.
And when they were putting up, a couple kids took some pictures, posted them on social media. It just blew up.
The former quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers stirred up controversy for kneeling during the national anthem. Some supporting his actions, others calling it disrespect.
Our school is a microcosm of our society, and that individual, right or wrong, caused a very divisive situation for our country.
Despite the uproar, the district hopes it's a lesson to learn from.
This could turn out to be a great civics lesson for our students.
A 12-year-old facing a felony charge after his brush with a police officer is back in court today. CBS 46's Daniel Wilkerson has the story from Cobb County Magistrate Court.
This is a case that garnered a lot of attention. Young Corey Jackson, an upcoming rapper, back in court. His attorney says today they denied the charges.
It's mind-blowing, it swept me off my feet.
Tuesday, he answered to his charges.
I know that I didn't do anything wrong.
12-year-old Corey Jackson, known as Corey J, an upcoming rapper in a Cobb County court, denied what he's accused of.
It was just ludicrous, crazy.
His attorney says the youngster faces some serious charges.
Unfortunately, one of them is a felony obstruction of an officer, a misdemeanor obstruction of an officer, disorderly conduct with violence, as well as criminal trespassing.
Where are you, Chase?
You may recall this.
You're about to go to jail.
Corey J, October of last year, inside the food court at the Cumberland Mall when he was grabbed by an officer and threatened with arrest. The report then was he'd been in trouble twice before for selling his CDs in the mall. His attorney Tuesday denied that.
When he was there, he was not selling any CDs or doing anything that would have been prohibited. He was there meeting other artists.
I reached out to the prosecutor on the case but did not get a call back right away.
Now, what do you say to people who may wonder whether maybe he or his parents are using this case as an opportunity and maybe exploiting the situation here to publicize his son's work?
He didn't invite this situation.
It's a new experience that I honestly hope to never be in that same position again.
So what's next in all of this? Well, the young rapper's attorney is hoping that it will all be thrown out. If not, he says it'll head to trial.
Ma'am, listen to me. Listen. Don't even say yes. Just listen. Pretrial services. Ma'am, listen. Say it again. Ma'am, do you need water? Just nod your head.
Yes, and I'm breathing treatment.
Ma'am, I'm not here to talk to you about your breathing treatment. Excuse me. Oh, Lord. Excuse me, don't say anything beyond what I am asking you. Trust me, I am looking. Ma'am. Ma'am. She lives with who?
She lives with me and she lives with my daughter in Miami.
Is that a different location?
Yes.
Excuse me. Oh, counsel. You've already said too much. Listen, please.
That's like saying N-I-G-G-E-R.
Hell yeah! Let's go! Let's go! Oh my God!
It's a curse for my people. You will not say it in school again today or in lessons. Knock it off.
During a debate at North Kingstown High School, a Compassion Party candidate for Attorney General in the state of Rhode Island was at the center of an incident that got national attention.
Eyewitness News reporter Anita Buffoni is in the control room with the story new tonight.
Attorney General candidate Alan Gordon compared the use of the term marijuana to a racial slur, then spelled it out in front of an auditorium filled with students. A video taken in the audience captured the scene where Gordon took issue with opponent, former Rhode Island U.S. Attorney Peter Nerona, and the forum's moderator for using the word marijuana. Gordon is a member of the Healing Church in West Greenwich that uses cannabis for religious services. In a statement following the incident, Gordon's campaign said in part, "The word is an ancient curse against his people, and enough blacks, Latinos, and natives find the word marijuana offensive when uttered by whites that its use is best politely avoided by saying cannabis instead." Pina Nerona was later interviewed on WPRO News Talk Radio the next day and stood by the use of the word marijuana, saying that's how it's referred to in federal and state statutes.
I think that behavior yesterday was not something that I would ever engage in. And, I guess I'll let the voters and the kids sort of judge whether that was appropriate or not.
Jim Vincent, head of the Rhode Island NAACP, was troubled by Gordon's remarks, especially since he spelled out the word in front of a group of young students.
Ironically, there may be some validity in terms of the term marijuana having some racist beginning. However, even with that being the case, it shouldn't be an analogy with the N-word.
North Kingstown Superintendent Phil Auger issued a statement saying, "We invite all registered candidates and we only ask that they are respectful and appropriate. In this case, the candidate was disruptive in his demeanor and inappropriate with his language. He was addressed and decided to leave."
According to Reuters, a Rhode Island gubernatorial candidate and her partner have been arrested for what police said was 48 pounds of marijuana. Compassion Party candidate Ann Armstrong has been arrested with Alan Gordon, who is the Compassion Party's candidate for Attorney General. The couple have made a number of unsuccessful attempts to run for office. They were both charged with possession of marijuana and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. The couple was ordered on $25,000 bail.
These lovebirds say it started with a crush.
We were in second grade.
Yeah, it was like second grade. I remember I stopped her mother. I stopped her and I said, "I'm going to marry Angie." And she said, "No, I'm sorry, you can't, but you can be friends."
Family vacations would bring them together, but social norms would draw them apart again.
This is something that I've always felt very life wasn't fair. Like, why did the person I want to be with the most and had the most attraction to, the most natural feelings for, why did you have to be my cousin?
They reunited after 10 years this winter, both recently single, both ready to take the plunge.
We're like, okay, this is crazy, but we're adults now, we're single now, we're just gonna go for it, and who cares what our family thinks.
They're crossing two big hurdles to get married. The most obvious is genetics. According to researchers at Columbia University, first cousins share 12.5% of their DNA. First cousins who have children face a 4 to 7% chance of their child having a genetic disorder, as opposed to a 3 to 4% chance for an average couple.
The genetic consequences, the biological consequences are very small. It's more what people might think and say.
The second major hurdle is the law. Here in Utah, it is illegal for first cousins to get married unless they are 65, 55 if they can prove they are infertile. So the two went to Colorado yesterday to tie the knot.
As soon as we crossed over the state border, we're not married anymore.
The two are gathering signatures and hope to change the law here in Utah.
No one I've ever been with will make me feel as perfect as she does. And her being my cousin and some of the responses is a small price to pay. I've always loved you, Angie. You know that.
All right, and we back on the forecast. Now, from day one, we have been accepting and welcoming of everybody else, even when it's not reciprocated. And most times, it's to our own detriment, almost every time. We even let outsiders into our personal business and let them settle disputes that's supposed to be settled amongst us. And we see the results that we get every single time. You end up with more situations like what's going on in Africa right now. China getting ready to call in those debts on Africa so they can start taking the land from Africans, which is doing nothing but changing European supremacy into Asian supremacy. Then you have people like Bill Gates, who should probably be charged with crimes against humanity. He's offering to pay off Nigeria's debt in exchange to be able to freely sterilize people, going back and forth from one slave master to another. We have to start learning ways to solve our own problem ourselves without relying on the outside force to come in. When you let outside forces regulate your affairs, you end up with situations like what happened to the brother Matther Burroughs. This brother who was unarmed in Ohio who ended up getting killed by the police. So let's see what led this unarmed brother, Matther Burroughs, to end up getting killed by Niles police.
Yeah, that was definitely gunshots, dude.
They shot him, dude.
What is he doing?
I don't know. They fucking shot him, man.
Shaking. I'm so scared. Them gunshots scared me so bad.
Me too.
I told the girls, I'm like, get on the floor right now, because I didn't know who was shooting. Oh my God!
Dude, that's my car, dude.
Oh my God! Is he dead?
Fuck no, he ain't dead, but he just fucked up my car, bro.
Oh my God.
About the shooting in Niles, police still on the scene. It was an officer-involved shooting, and right now we know one person is dead, not a police officer, but investigators still have lots of questions. Now, the incident started around 2:30 at Niles Municipal Court. It ended a short time later near the Royal Mall Apartments right off of Route 46.
Stan, I was talking to Captain John Marshall, and he gave me a brief timeline of exactly what happened today. He told me at around 2:30 the suspect entered Niles Municipal Court. We're not told why he was at court today, but he went and talked to a probation officer. He apparently had a warrant out for his arrest from charges dating back to December. Apparently they were assault charges. We're told that the probation officer recognized him, possibly saw that he recognized him from having a warrant out, and then attempted to detain him. At that point, the suspect started fleeing from the court. Apparently, when they were in the parking lot at some point while the officer was trying to detain him, the suspect almost hit this probation officer with his car. This is what dispatchers then did from that point on.
Dispatcher put out an alert for that vehicle, and officers went to the address that came back in order to try to locate the subject that had left the court. At some point, the subject met the officers there, and an incident occurred, and there was an officer-involved shooting at that point.
And again, from that point on is what Stan was saying. At some point, there was some sort of altercation, and the suspect was shot here at the Royal Mall Apartments. Now, again, the scene is still very active behind me. You can see the police are still here. They're looking into exactly what unfolded here. We are told that the officers who were involved in this shooting will be on administrative leave. That's part of the protocol, though. So as they're searching and looking into this, that's what's going to be happening as far as the department.
Now, the police have different stories about what happened, and it's conflicting and confusing. But this brother, Matther Burroughs, had a meeting with his probation officer. And the police said as he was leaving, the probation officer recognized him and realized he had a warrant. But if he was supposed to be meeting with his probation officer, why is he talking about he recognized him? And then as he's leaving, all of a sudden he realizes he has a warrant. So then they said this probation officer tried to run and chase him down. And they said this brother who was already in his car started to back up. And they said as he backed up, he still had the car door open, which hit the probation officer. And then he took off. Now, as his brother Matther Burroughs got to his house, they said cops were already waiting for him because of the warrant. And they said on the radio, it looked like he isn't going to stop. The police chief, Jay Holland, said this brother started driving his car towards the cops. And at that point, they perceived a threat. So they had no other choice but to open fire. And even though these cops say they fear for their lives, the video clearly shows the car was pointed in the other direction. On top of that, the bullet holes were in the back window, so they were shooting him from behind. And you have witnesses that say they saw this brother stop, but the witness said he was instructed not to talk to anybody. Even though they said he was driving towards the cops, all the evidence, including the way they had him boxed in, points to the car being stopped. Within 20 seconds of the cops saying they were approaching him, they were calling for medical help. Now, even though this warrant, which was for domestic abuse, had nothing to do with this, they still tried to use it to justify killing his brother.
The Bureau of Criminal Investigation reveals some new details about the officer-involved shooting in Niles and what happened. Good evening, I'm Dave Sess.
I'm Mandy Noel. Today, a spokesperson for the BCI revealed Matther Burroughs did not have a gun in the car. The question now, did he use his vehicle as a weapon? 27 First News reporter Nadine Grimley has been talking to investigators. She's got our top story at 6.
The investigation continues tonight as to what exactly happened in the moments leading up to Wednesday's shooting at the Royal Mall Apartments that killed Matther Burroughs.
Everything that we have relative to the case, we have handed over to BCI, and they are in the midst of their independent investigation of the event.
A BCI crime scene unit truck was parked outside the Niles Police Department Friday afternoon, where inside investigators with the Ohio Attorney General's office were conducting a search warrant on the vehicle Burroughs was driving. We're told agents finished collecting evidence from the vehicle this afternoon. A BCI spokesperson tells me they did not find a gun inside the car, but part of their investigation will be to determine whether or not the vehicle was used as a weapon. They'll continue to collect and analyze evidence in the case while awaiting autopsy and toxicology results. But a final report could take months.
It definitely could. A lot of it is dependent on interaction with the coroner's office and other factors of the investigation that could take some time.
Matthew's dead. He was shot 6 times, and he dead.
Right now, it's 6 tears and sadness tonight for the girlfriend of the man shot and killed by police in Niles. She tells us the man she knew had a huge heart. Tonight, friends and family are remembering 35-year-old Matther Burroughs. They tell us he had been in trouble in the past, but was working toward a better path.
Police are still sorting out what happened yesterday before the shooting at the Royal Mall Apartments. 27 First News reporter Nadine Grimley is covering all the angles. She has tonight's top story.
As BCI continues their investigation into Wednesday's officer-involved shooting at the Royal Mall in Niles, the pregnant girlfriend of Matther Burroughs, the man who was killed, is sharing her story.
He was a sweetheart.
About the man she loved.
I'm gonna miss his smile. He has a really nice, he used to just cheese at me.
Police say Burroughs was at Niles Municipal Court Wednesday when it was discovered he had an active warrant for assault and menacing charges. The warrant stemming from an argument between he and Elkins, where police were called to his apartment on December 17th.
911, where's your emergency?
Hey, it's this dude, man. There's a man waving his gun in my face.
He said he would have never harmed me. He would have never hurt me, and he would have never shot me or my son. And we got that cleared up.
Police say when the probation officer tried detaining Burroughs Wednesday, he took off hitting the PO with the door of the car as he drove away.
One of the road units did come across that suspect on the road, led them on a very short chase into the apartment complex, and at some point after that, the shooting occurred.
But he wasn't a violent man. They didn't have to kill him like that.
2 officers have been placed on paid administrative leave while the investigation is ongoing.
We will get to the bottom of what happened to Matther. Period.
Now, this warrant came from an argument he and his girlfriend had. And let me say this, we have got to stop calling the police for domestic disputes. They aren't there to help any of us. And I understand there are going to be times where you're going to have to call somebody. But this is why it's important for us to create our own group that we can call when we need to. Not only to police the outsiders that come in our communities, but to also police ourselves. And we have had organizations like that. The Black Panthers were one example. We don't have to recreate the wheel. We can take our ancestors' blueprint, but we have to learn how to protect it. But they're trying to use this woman in this situation that has nothing to do with them killing an unarmed man to justify murdering him. And even though they say they're still supposed to be investigating, they got right on code and start caping for these cops.
2 Niles police officers on administrative leave after a deadly shooting have been identified. They are officers James Reppy and Christopher Mannella. The shooting happened January 2nd at the Royal Mall apartment complex. Investigators say Matther Burroughs ran from officers when they tried to apprehend him on a warrant. Police say he tried to run them over with his vehicle, but the investigation continues into every aspect of the incident.
Today, Police Chief Jay Holland talked about what his officers faced when they encountered Matther Burroughs. Here's 27 First News reporter Nadine Grimley.
A week after police shot and killed Matther Burroughs at the Royal Mall apartment complex in Niles, Police Chief Jay Holland issued a statement.
We feel that some members of our community want to hear from their police department.
Holland spoke about some of what happened on January 2nd leading up to the shooting. He says the initial responding officers were on foot at the complex looking for Burroughs before he even pulled in with another cruiser behind him. Holland says Burroughs' vehicle then drove towards the officers.
Officers state they perceived a threat to their safety and fired their service weapons.
What would the effect on your body be if you were run over by a car? Very likely would be fatal.
Nearly 2 years ago, the Niles Police Department was certified by the Ohio Collaborative Community Police Advisory Board for their training and use of force policy.
Our policy states that if an officer reasonably observes a threat to his safety or his life, he may use deadly force to neutralize that threat to his life or safety.
Tom Conley with the Greater Warren Youngstown Urban League says he commends the police department for speaking out, but he's still waiting for BCI's report.
The bottom line is we have to wait for the BCI report to come out, because that report will fill in the gaps of what has happened.
Our thoughts are with our officers and with everybody involved in this. It's nothing, nobody wanted any of this to happen, but we have to react to situations we're put in.
Now, 2 of the cops that were involved, James Reppy and Christopher Mannella, got their paid vacation. And it turns out both of these cops got a history of their own. This is the second shooting Officer Christopher Mannella been involved in. And of course, he was cleared of that one too. The cop James Reppy had domestic cases of his own. His girlfriend accused him of abuse. He filed an order of protection against him. But of course they justified him and cleared him of all charges too, because they stay on code. And the dominant society isn't going to let an outsider come in and tell them what to do. They're not going to let China or North Korea punish American citizens. And we shouldn't let outsiders come in and punish us. At the end of the day, we are all we got. And until we get on code and do what we got to do and learn how to protect ourselves, outsiders are going to keep trying to come in. And we're going to keep getting the same results.
Police officer who shot and killed 12-year-old Tamir Rice is fighting again to get his job back.
That's right. Timothy Lohman was not charged in Rice's death 4 years ago, but was fired for lying on his job application. The police union now is appealing his firing, and Channel 3's Ray Strickland has more on Lohman's fight and what the family of Tamir Rice is saying about it all.
This is not the first time Timothy Lohman has made an attempt to rejoin the Cleveland police. In 2017, he was fired not for shooting Tamir Rice, but for what the city says was a failure to be fully candid when he applied to join the force. Last year, he tried to get his job back, but lost. A ruling cited an investigation in his time as an Independence police officer. It was discovered that the department there wanted him gone too. The deputy chief said he lacked maturity, couldn't handle stress, and that he lied to his supervisors. The city says Lohman never mentioned those things when he applied to be an officer in Cleveland.
And this all comes back to the use of force, which has nothing to do with this arbitration whatsoever.
In 2014, Lohman made national headlines when he shot and killed 12-year-old Tamir Rice outside of a Cleveland rec center. Rice had a fake gun. Lohman shot within 2 seconds. He was never charged. In a new appeal filed Friday in Cuyahoga County Court, the union not only wants Lohman to return to work, but they want him to get back pay and lost benefits. Jeff Farmer, a spokesperson for the union, says he's been treated unfairly, and he hopes the judge will go on the merits of fact and not political pressure. Tamir's mother, Samaria Rice, has been vocal about the case and Lohman since her son's death. The family's attorney had this to say about Lohman's latest attempt to return to the Cleveland Police Department.
Until the CPPA comprehends its officers are not above the law, none of us are safe. And Tamir, he never stood a chance when there's a police culture like that.
We reached out to the mayor's office to get a comment on this, but a spokesperson responded saying the city does not discuss ongoing litigation.
Restaurant at the center of controversy after allegations of racial profiling. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sandy Miller.
And I'm John Brown. A group of African-American professionals claimed that they were embarrassed when police officers arrived after the group was accused of not wanting to pay their bill. Fox News' Kelly Hoskins joins us live in Richmond Heights with more on the accusations tonight. Kelly.
Well, the incident allegedly happened here at the Blue Sky Grill on South Brentwood Boulevard. We're told that a group of 30 African-American professionals were here to celebrate their friend's birthday when they were kicked out of their birthday celebration before it was set to end.
I mean, if it made us feel like a criminal. It made us feel like that we was breaking the law, and we wasn't.
30-year-old Terrence Dickerson is a chef, a recording artist, and a father of two. Dickerson says on Saturday he made reservations for 30 of his closest friends and family members to attend his birthday dinner and celebration. The party was held at the Blue Sky Grill in Richmond Heights, and Terrence says what was supposed to be a night of joy and celebration turned into a night of humiliation and turmoil.
These people that wanted to go in there and get served and have a good time, a birthday celebration, and you know, they didn't treat us like that. They treated us like, you know, we didn't supposed to be there.
About 8:20 p.m. we got a call for a possible disturbance involving 30 people at the Blue Sky Grill. So we had a number of officers, 7, 8 officers or so, go out there. Quickly found out that there wasn't a disturbance. There was just misunderstanding and disagreement over how the group was going to be billed, whether it be one check or individual checks. And shortly after we arrived, apparently the restaurant came to an understanding with the group.
This is video captured from the birthday party that has been shared on social media numerous times. Dickerson says he signed a contract with Blue Sky reserving a party space. He showed us this email that states that everyone could do separate checks for their own food and drink, and that they would be charged 20% of all checks on gratuity. Dickerson says the night of the party, things changed quickly. He claims the waitress refused to serve them because she felt overwhelmed due to the large party.
So she left, and we didn't see her anymore. So everybody was wondering, like, where this at, where that at, where my condiments at, where this at. And she left and never came back. And then the next message we getting is the police want y'all to leave.
Halton Nelson attended the dinner party that night and left embarrassed.
I looked out the other door, and there were like 6 or 7 more cops, and it was like 8 total. And I asked the cops and said, is there any laws being broken or anything, or is there any like legitimate reason you guys should be here? He said, we were just called, about a group of 30 didn't want to pay, and I said, well, that's not true. We never said that at all. As a matter of fact, we were still trying to get our food.
Dickerson friends and family believe the restaurant feared the group would not pay their bill because they were African American. They were then forced to pay their bills in a single file line, then forced to leave. Our news crews headed to Blue Sky Grill to get some answers. When we arrived, we were greeted by a security guard and asked to leave. We asked for a statement from the owner, and we were told they did not have a comment, but is fully aware of the incident, leaving Terrence and his party with more questions than answers.
Very embarrassing. The police told everybody that we had to go upstairs because it was a bad look on the establishment, but like I told him, the fact that we have a black party of 30, which we all contracted to be up here, it looks bad because you have 8 police officers out here, and no laws being broken.
Dickerson is now calling for an apology from Blue Sky Grill.
I would like for them to reach out to me and just apologize for the service and apologize for her just leaving us up there without even communicating with us.
You guys are making me After we were asked to leave the Blue Sky Grill this afternoon, we wanted to give management another opportunity to respond. So we called right before this story aired, and we were told once again they were not available for comment.
Parents are demanding action after a group of Bel Air High School students are seen in a controversial photo.
Yeah, this photo shows the teens using the letters that are on their shirts. They stand together. The letters spell out a racial slur. ABC 2's Chanel Pearman is live this morning for us in Bel Air. Chanel, what do parents want to happen to the students involved in this?
Christian parents are outraged, and now they're calling on the school district to take action. More than 16,000 people have signed an online petition calling for those students involved to be expelled. Last week, students at Bel Air High School were encouraged to wear a letter on their shirt and then come together with other students to spell words. Now, this was all part of the School Spirit Week. Now, students can be seen in this photo spelling out the N-word. In a statement, Harford County Schools says the use of racial slurs or any discriminatory comments is not acceptable. The school system could not confirm how the students were punished, but did say the 6 students in the photo and the student who took it were disciplined. Now, many parents want more to be done.
I think that there should be zero tolerance for something like this. Send a strong message to not just to them, but to anybody else that thinks that this is okay.
Ashley and Christian, parents behind the petition, believe that a zero-tolerance policy will help make sure that no child will be harassed or degraded for the color of their skin, religion, or sexual orientation.
Hoover Mayor Frank Brocado is speaking out about race relations after an alleged incident involving a teacher using racial dialogue at Spain Park.
Yeah, this comes after high school students were filmed using racial slurs over the weekend. CBS 42 News reporter Corey McGinnis joins us now. He's live in Hoover. Corey, school leaders there are now investigating both these incidents.
Yeah, Sherry, good evening. They are. It's actually under investigation by the school system, but we also got a chance to actually speak with the mayor of Hoover, who tells me that the city is addressing the controversy.
We're working very hard to address the issues that have been brought up.
Hoover Mayor Frank Brocado says he plans to have a conversation about race after Hoover City Schools is now investigating an alleged incident of a teacher using the N-word when talking with students at the school.
We have already been in dialogue with many, many different organizations. We've talked with many different people from people of faith, people of different organizations that address issues with race relations.
Hoover City Schools Public Relations Coordinator Jason Gaston released a statement saying, in part, there were concerns brought to school authorities and the matter is under investigation by the school system. Tuesday was supposed to be a day of dialogue at Spain Park High. The school is dealing with the fallout of a video that surfaced last weekend showing a group of white Spain Park and Hoover High School students talking about the Holocaust, Jewish people, and African Americans using the N-word multiple times. Meanwhile, Mayor Brocado has a message for the teens involved in the video.
You have got to engage yourself with people that don't look like you and try to understand their perspective and let them have an opportunity to hear your perspective as well.
This morning, Superintendent Kathy Murphy met with the teacher and Hoover High School principal to talk about what happened. Last night, Dr. Murphy told WVTM 13 the teacher had admitted to using the N-word and had apologized. But Murphy has not decided what, if any, action to take, so the teacher remains on paid leave out of the classroom. The incident happened last Friday during a third period food and nutrition class at Hoover High School. As students were working on a project, they were playing music, a song by Tupac called Dear Mama. We sat down today with Diamond Levy and her mom. Diamond is the student who played that song on her phone in class, and she says the teacher used the N-word to tell her to turn the music off.
I was singing at the time. I was singing, and when she said it, she was like, turn that N song off.
It's a slur at this point. Like, it's not just a word, it's not just a term, it's a racial slur that causes pain. It stings when it's said.
I would request your approval of the personnel report, which is the resignation of Teddy Butcher.
Superintendent Kathy Murphy spent the last several days investigating exactly what happened, talking to students, their families, and the teacher who used the N-word in the classroom last Friday.
The word was said, it was inappropriate. We addressed it with swiftness. I know that it comes as a disappointment to our students and to our community, and for that, you know, there is no excuse. We don't tolerate that.
Teddy Butcher, a teacher in the Hoover school system for 11 years, deciding to resign.
She made the very best choice for herself, and at the end of the day, I think she made the best decision for all.
Butcher admitted using the racial slur and apologized. She was on paid leave during the investigation. But this man, who identifies himself as a Hoover parent, is upset the teacher wasn't fired immediately.
It don't matter the context. She already admitted that she said it. She should have been fired like that. Ain't no investigation.
But Murphy says due process is important.
There's been no attempt on the part of the school district, certainly not on the part of the superintendent, to sweep anything on the rug. I think you all have seen me address all matters head on, whatever the issue might be.
Butcher's resignation effective immediately. The superintendent says she hopes to take what she calls a negative and harmful event and make the best out of it. For one, she's inviting students to be part of a superintendent's advisory council to keep the conversation going and try to prevent anything like this from happening again.
The famous kissing sailor image after the war, Alfred Eisenstadt's photograph of VJ Day. When the war came to an end, George Mendonça, the sailor captured in the image, thought it was an important memento of the war.
The picture is still known around the whole world as a symbol of the end of World War II. This is one of the good things that ever happened to me.
Mendoza died this week, God bless him. In the wake of his death, a statue capturing that moment was defaced with the words #MeToo. The implication being that the nurse in the picture did not consent to be kissed. This is related to an internet sensation. Trolls dug up a 1971 Playboy interview with John Wayne, the acting legend. In the interview, he refers to gays using a pejorative, says Indians were selfishly trying to keep this land, and he's glad we took it from them. And then he says this: with a lot of blacks, there's quite a bit of resentment along with their dissent, and possibly rightfully so. But we can't all of a sudden get down on our knees and turn everything over to the leadership of the blacks. I believe in white supremacy, Duke said, until the blacks are educated to the point of responsibility. Now, Laura, what I don't like about both of these stories is we're judging the past in light of shifting moral, ethic, and cultural codes of today. We can't do that.
Well, they're either defacing statues or pulling them down.
Yeah.
So and I've said this before, I'm going to keep saying this. This is what the Taliban does. The Taliban used to rip down historical markers, destroy churches. ISIS did the same thing, does the same thing. They don't want any vestige of what was.
Well,
even if it's bad, they don't want any vestige. Even if it's good, they don't want anything.
But these are two iconic images of America.
Right.
John Wayne and the sailor, the release, freedom. They're impugning America. They're impugning America. And if you want to settle a racist score, if you want to go settle scores, talk to Jesse Smollett. Go talk to the governor and Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. They got plenty of scores to settle there. Deal with the living, not the dead. We can't go back to a man who's been dead for 40 years and an interview of 50 years old. It's just, he was born in 1907,
Okay,
by the way.
But by the way, that interview has been out there for 40, 50 years.
At least.
Joining me now to respond is Ethan Wayne, who's not only John Wayne's son, also president of the John Wayne Enterprises and director of the John Wayne Cancer Foundation. Ethan, this is some real tough stuff. I don't know that you're going to try to defend the words, but let's at least let folks see what they were. Relative to gays, can we start with that? Your father quoted in Playboy magazine, if we can put that on the screen, as saying the following: Americans will be completely fed up with these perverted films. He's then asked, well, what do you consider perverted? He talks about Midnight Cowboy, a story about two fags, and thinks that qualifies. Relative to blacks, people of color, but we can't all of a sudden get down on our knees and turn everything over to the leadership of the blacks. I believe in white supremacy until the blacks are educated to a point of responsibility. And then with regard to Native Americans, one more of these: I don't feel we did wrong in taking this great country away from them, if that's what you're asking. Our so-called stealing of this country from them was just a matter of survival. There were great numbers of people who needed new land, and the Indians were selfishly trying to keep it for themselves. And I did read the full interview because I didn't want to take anything out of context. Respond to that.
Well, thank you for having me on and letting me respond. I think you do have to go to the context of that entire interview. This is an interview that took place over 2 days, and I believe the transcript was about 8 hours long. It was a pretty contentious discussion over politics and the film industry. So if we want to, let's start. I think he started with the gay term. He used the word, he used a terrible word, no doubt about it. But he used it not in the context of an individual's sexuality. He used it in the context of the changing landscape of the motion picture business, something that distressed him. You know, my father worked in Hollywood for 50 years, and Hollywood is probably, you know, one of the most progressive and diverse communities on earth. He didn't care what race, gender, sexual orientation you were. He cared how well you did your job. He took everyone at face value. So the second place you went, I think, was the Native American question. Black.
Okay, do that one.
Okay. So my father made a mistake that some people make in interviews by repeating the language that the interviewer used. So that's where the term white supremacy came out. In fact, we dug through our archives and we found notes that my father wrote to people at the time who were concerned about his use of that term, and he explained that it was a mistake on his part. He repeated the interviewer's language. He should have said supremacy of responsible people. If you'll read the entire interview, you'll see that they were discussing a group that he believed was trying to use violence to gain power, and my father would never approve of that. He believed in the democratic system. So lastly, I think he went to the American Indians, Native Americans. And I don't think anybody had a closer relationship to the Native Americans than John Wayne. He's being asked pointedly political questions about an issue that we've dealt with for a century and a half before my father gave the interview, and we're still dealing with it today. You know, it's a complex question. My father had a great personal respect for Native Americans. He worked with them, you know, for half his career. When John Wayne and a film crew would come to Monument Valley or to a reservation, it was an economic boon for that tribe and those people. They appreciated him, and I think anyone who knew him would remember him fondly. He had a great respect for them as a people and for their art and culture.
All right, and we back on the forecast. And I want to say RIP to the brother Elliott Williams, to the brother Matther Burroughs. And we as a group cannot keep taking casualties. We've had so many casualties. We probably couldn't honor them all in one lifetime. At some point, enough has to be enough. And we have to protect ourselves. We have to get on code and rebuild these institutions. And this time, protect them. Because they're going to come. And when we're on code, there are plenty of ways we can build our economy. Right now, we can elect the most successful black business people and put them in charge of funding and helping grow black businesses. And everybody can contribute to it. Rich, poor, it doesn't matter. And when you help create more businesses or help grow businesses that already exist, so they can expand and come to our neighborhoods. It'll be a lot easier to spend our money in black establishments. And in return, those businesses create more jobs for us. And when we circulate our money in our neighborhoods, we'll be able to build institutions. We'll be able to build our own schools, our own police forces, all the things that we need to build to protect ourselves, all the things we need to do to empower ourselves. And when we really get on code, then we can do it, and we will. Now, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, man, we have got to start standing for something, or we're going to keep falling for anything.